Wayne Dana, like, am I still here? Am I still doing what I love?
I suddenly become an anomaly, an outlier.
To be so conscious and aware of what it is that brings your spirit joy and lights that inner fire, it is a tough place to be.
And that's what came to my mind. إنه قد إيه بحياتك وقعتي.
Yeah.
But then again, here you are.
I'm very much someone who enjoys seeking meaning in things.
Hello, welcome to yet another episode from Inspire. As usual, as you used to, متعودين نقعد مع very inspirational people. And of course, inspiring as I always say, but people with a story, people that have actually made a difference, whether on society, on their friends, or حتى on themselves. Today I'm sitting with a founder, a creative consultant, a writer, a marketeer, I would say, a public speaker, and a podcast host. Today I'm sitting with a woman to actually look up to. She's someone very influential in my opinion, and she's gone through a lot in her life. Besides, she's literally a reflection of what I actually do. She worked in agencies, she's a public speaker, and she has a podcast. Today I'm sitting with the one and only Dana AlHanbali. Welcome to this space, welcome to this family, as I always say.
Thank you. What a kind introduction. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
No, it's a pleasure. Honestly, I think there's something that I really find impressive, صراحة, across all my guests. We're the same. هيدي الانرجي that I always get before the episode. حتى العالم يمكن بتشوفه قدام الكاميرا بس. It's what happens before the episode that really impresses me. إنه قد إيه how we connect. And sometimes I wish I had a mic.
Yeah.
I wish I can record these moments. I know they're فعلا moments that take it, just show you who this person is. It took us, what, 2 minutes?
Yeah.
To realize and the conversation is flowing.
It's incredible how much this as a medium, Aslan, really kind of automatically invites you into a community where all you want to do is just talk and connect.
Absolutely.
That's amazing.
You know, I know one of the things that was interesting about this episode is that we talked a lot about عن شو بدنا نحكي. What's the topic? The reason I couldn't send you, and this is for the viewers to see, the reason I couldn't send you a focus is because you're someone that has genuinely done a lot in your life. You've been in entrepreneurship, you've taken risks, you've been through a lot of حتى mental or physical health issues in your life, and you've overcame them كمان. So there's a lot to talk to you about, and then I realized for a second, I was like, oh, كل هالاشياء, especially career, and whole issue, they're the result of you working hard. But what I wanted to know more about is مين هي Dana, because when we ask people, if I was to ask you, tell me about yourself, automatically we go on, I'm a creative director, I'm an entrepreneur, and so on. So the question is, it might be challenging شوي. If I was to ask you who you are without the titles, what would you say?
That is an incredibly deep question to start with.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that you ask me this now because I'm kind of reflecting on that myself. Who am I? What am I all about? I know it sounds cliche, but I think I'm coming to terms with how human I really, really am. And I know it's a cliche word. I wish I could think of something a little bit more enlightened, but it took me a while to admit that I am very, very okay with just being human, just being a person who's trying to figure out how to make the most of the time that I have here. In a way that is still true to myself.
If I was to look at you, because أنا سألت حالي السؤال, if I was in your place, I was like, Hussein, how would you define this woman without using her career? And for some reason, the word adaptable came in my mind. And I said this in other episodes, and you know how they always say, survival of the fittest? You know, it's actually not right. What he said is survival of the most adaptable.
Oh, wow.
And that's actually what Darwin said, and that's the truth. And when I watched everything you do, and that's what came to my mind.
Yeah.
إنه قد إيه بحياتك وقعتي.
Yeah.
But then again, here you are.
That's so true. And it's interesting. And it's funny that you chose the word adaptable because that's very much a reflection of the way that I was raised. We talked about it a little bit, and I talk about it on my show as well. I grew up between two worlds, not just countries, not just continents. And those two worlds brought with it different cultures, religions, languages, points of view, value systems. So I think I had to be, and I was trained to be at a very, very young age. So it became a part of my persona, but I don't know if I would classify it as who I am.
Yeah.
I think it's the coping mechanism that I've adopted for my life. Adaptability, for sure.
If I was to go back in time and talk to the kind of like the 15, 16-year-old Dana, will I be seeing the same Dana as she is today?
I think you would be seeing the same Dana, but maybe a little bit more optimistic, a little bit more forgiving, a little bit more playful. I think the older that you get, and you're used to kind of being someone who's super, super adaptable, the result of that kind of becomes that you take in a lot of the surroundings that you are consistently surrounded by.
Of course.
And doing that over a long period of time, you get to a point of introspection and reflection where you wonder, wow, okay, but how much of this is me? I've taken in so much of the world around me in an attempt to survive and thrive. But when Dana, like, am I still here? Am I still doing what I love? Is this enough?
Yeah.
Which is it's a big question to answer.
That's true. I think when we grow up, that's what I'm so envious for kids about. I look at kids and I'm like, I wish I was this courageous again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think when you grow older, at the age of 16, adolescence and whatever, teenagers, society starts to really shape you a lot. And then at the age of 25, 26, 27, which I am right now, it took me a great deal to be able to step back وأقول لحالي لحظة حسين إنه don't let society shape who you are. أنت مين أصلاً?
Yeah.
Who are you actually? Because قلتي لي والله من قبل إنه حسين إنه how are you this self-aware? And honestly, I actually don't know the answer. I just think that I approach life with an open heart, and in every step I'm taking, I try to ask myself, does this fit with my value or not? مش دايما بتزبط معي, بس إنه it just helps me look within before I take any step forward.
That's such a beautiful way of putting it, Hussein. And you're one of the lucky ones to have been able to really discover this at a super young age.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to say that in a patronizing way. I still consider myself at 35 super young.
Yeah, of course.
But to be able to kind of be that self-aware in your 20s is incredible. So bravo.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. About the age, recently I was talking to my friend and I was like, listen, I'm turning 28 soon. I'm so old. And she looks at me and she was like, how about we flip the perspective? Instead of saying I'm 27 or 28 years old, why don't you just say I'm only 28 years alive?
Yeah.
And I was like, that's actually a good point.
That is.
You're 35 years alive and that's it.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like, if you really, really break it down and think about it, it's not a lot, because you spend the majority of the first quarter of your life doing things that have been laid out for you.
Yeah.
And when you get to your 20s and you start to work, it's very much a trial and error period.
Yeah.
You're questioning a lot of things. You have to follow the rules.
Yeah.
You move from being, encouraged to be very kind of expressive and of the mindset of, dream. The world is your oyster. Do everything, and then you get into the work world where there are rules, there are regulations, there's a way, there's a path that you should follow.
Of course.
So there's a lot of questioning in that period, and then once you get to your 30s, which in my opinion are the best phase, like
Nice.
the 30s بيحطوا العشرينات بجيبتهم. Like
No way.
I love my 30s because you get to a point where you're just like, oh, okay. I had an opportunity to kind of fall down and get back up again.
Yeah.
I know what this feels like. I know what, hurt and failure and being selfish and dealing with people I like and don't like feels like. So in your 30s, you're a little bit more in tune with that inner voice. So I love my 30s.
I see that your life has a theme of a lot of change happening in it.
Yeah.
And حتى كتبها إنه you changed a lot. You changed schools.
Yeah.
You changed careers dramatically. يعني you sold shares in your own business twice.
No, once.
Once. So and then suddenly you start a podcast to tell the world who you are, and just you do so many things. And why is change? And حتى where you lived. I mean, you lived in 3 states, didn't you? So why the change? Always.
It's interesting. I talk about this as well. So I grew up between Kuwait and the States my entire life. I went to 7 different schools. So on an average of every 2 to 3 years, I would be physically moving and changing my environment completely. And I used to hate it. I used to fight it a lot when I was younger. But, the older I got, the more I started to realize that it was that ability to, again, adapt to change, which really helped me, which is what helped me grow.
Yeah.
So that ability to kind of recognize growth made me really always in pursuit of opportunities and ways that I could be learning.
Yeah.
So even when it came to me working and getting a job, you know, if you look at, for example, my CV and my experience, I've worked in a variety of different companies that do different things within the field of communication. And I was able to kind of advance quite quickly for someone in their 20s. And that's because I was literally like a sponge. I was so interested in learning everything I could within the shortest period of time and find a way to apply it and find a way to add value to wherever I was. And it was the way that I viewed purpose. Purpose felt like it was this pursuit of learning and understanding and figuring out how things worked and how I was going to contribute to how things worked and questioning whether I could contribute to change. So it was very much this pursuit of learning that set me out for this path to change.
And persistence.
Yeah.
I go back in time to in your time, not my time. In your time to where you were بتذكر القصة اللي قلتيها in one of your podcasts where you were literally chasing your boss to join this meeting for the pitch, and then you literally you forced yourself into that pitch.
Completely.
And then you proved that it doesn't matter whether I'm an intern or an employee, it doesn't matter if I'm getting paid or not.
Yeah.
This is who I am.
Yeah.
I don't care. And what they can عمرك وقتها?
20.
I mean, that 20 years old.
I was in college too.
Oh my God.
So I was working part-time.
Because for me, pitching is the best part about agencies. But we're not going to talk about agencies هلا, بس إنه for you to jump into, usually when I put someone on the spot for a pitch, they run away.
Yeah.
You're putting yourself on the spot and you're running towards it.
Yeah, I loved it. There's a thrill that comes with it.
Yes.
There's an adrenaline rush that comes with anyone who's been involved in new business knows the rush that is involved with it. I like that. And I always enjoyed presenting in general. I'm someone who, it's almost like I become this different character.
Yeah.
You know, when I was younger, I used to do theater a lot.
Nice.
And it's interesting because we started by talking about change, and really the biggest consistent thing that I used to do in my life to be able to cope with all the change that was happening was that I would go to theater. Nice. I used to participate in competitions. I used to volunteer in community programs. I loved being on stage. I loved being a different character. It was my safety zone. So when it came to work, the opportunity to kind of jump into a specific character where I would have to, you know, talk someone through a strategy or a project or a piece of creative, it was exciting. It was a thrill.
Mm-hmm. One of the things I spoke about with Rasha, Rasha is my previous guest, by the way, guys, which is her cousin.
Very proud. I'm a very proud cousin.
All the stars in one family. So she was talking to me and she was telling me that what's the point if there was no fear? Me, before this episode, I was afraid. Before doing any episode, I'm always afraid. Before every pitch, I'm always afraid. بقول للعالم, if fear, it's either you see it as something that will push you down, or you see it as the best motivator. So the fact I was running here وخايف ويلا شو بدي احكي وكل شيء, وحتى كنت بحكي مع my friend قلت له I don't know what to talk about, even though I do know what to talk about. But it's خلاص, I use it as a motivator to push me to make the most out of my experience here at least. So you going into that pitch, I love the fact that انت كنت موترة. That made it unique. That made you actually go to the next step. Your motto in life is very unique. It's like step for something or step aside.
Yeah.
How did that even come up? And it really is you, by the way.
Yeah, I feel like it's very me too. And it's interesting because I discovered it. So it's stand for something or step aside. Yeah. And the way that I discovered it, I remember I do a lot of solo traveling. I have always done solo trips. So at least once a year, I especially pre-COVID, I would do a solo trip to New York and to Paris.
Nice.
And I remember on one of my trips to New York, I don't remember what was happening at the time, but there was some sort of political, social something happening, protest, something that was happening at the time. Yeah. And I saw it written on a t-shirt, stand for something or step aside. And it really resonated with me because I always felt like, again, I was in pursuit of a lot of things, but a lot of the reason I was always in pursuit of those things is because I was always trying to find meaning. I'm very much someone who enjoys seeking meaning in things, to a fault sometimes, I'll admit. For me, this idea of, even if I want to be someone who is a speaker, who wants to have a business, who wants to start a podcast, whatever, there needs to be a very clear purpose around what message do I want to put out there? What is it that I stand for? And what are the values that I want to embody and articulate, whatever the platform may be.
Yeah.
And it's funny because it's that kind of combination that kind of makes you the ideal candidate for anything in the communications world.
That's true, of course.
Yeah.
Was that the way that Something to Consider was created? A very unique name to her podcast, by the way, which I found very interesting because you're the hero of that podcast and you interview people every once in a while. But the name is very different to the usual podcast name.
The name came from this idea of I really did grow up in situations where I always felt like I didn't necessarily belong.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I was always I was never Palestinian enough for the Palestinians. I was never Lebanese enough for the Lebanese.
Yeah.
I was never Kuwaiti enough for the Kuwaitis. I was never Arab enough for Arabs.
Yeah.
But also, I am not American. I'm not. I don't. My English is not perfect enough to be American, and it's just I never belonged.
Yeah.
I was Muslim amongst Christians and Jews. I was conservative amongst liberals, and then amongst conservatives, I'm the liberal. So one thing that I learned from that experience my entire life was that, I never attached myself to anything specific, but I would always be very open to taking in whatever was said around me, whether that was values, points of views, ways of thinking. I never like to kind of impose the way that I thought on anyone else.
Yeah.
So I always thought of it as this idea of, okay, I may not agree with what it is that you're saying, but I'm willing to consider it. And that's really how I moved through life. I've worked with people that when it comes to the way that we think, we are polar opposites. But I respect them for it, and I will consider their point of view. I think it's important for me to consider their point of view. So it's just kind of a way that I think, and I felt like if I wanted to develop this into a podcast, Something to Consider felt like a fitting title, because whatever it was I was saying, I'm not here to give you advice. I'm not here to tell you this is how you should be doing things. Just because I've been doing it for 14, 15 years doesn't mean it's the right way. But it is a way. So it's something to consider.
No, yeah, definitely. Nice. I like the way you ended it. No, absolutely, because I watch a few of them and I love how vulnerable you are in the podcast. I told you before we start this episode, it's like when I watch them, I can see, especially when you talk about specific topics, I can see how your eyes would start to kind of shine because you're just getting emotional about topics. And I actually did steal a quote from you, okay? And you said in one of the places, maybe Instagram or the podcast, you said, I feel more powerful in my vulnerability than I ever did in the illusion of perfection.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
That was a very, very difficult lesson I had to learn. I knew when I took the step to develop this podcast that if I wanted it to be truly authentic, I needed to kind of let go of this idea of me being Dana, the professional, the successful, whatever in my work. And I had to be really true to who I was and my experiences. And the way a lot of people know me is through I don't want to say it's a facade because it's not like it's not true, but they know me through the illusion that of my work accomplishments. And when it was school, it was my school accomplishments. I graduated top of my class, whatever, all of that stuff. And I was always afraid that if there ever came a moment where I was no longer seen as being on a specific pedestal, I would be seen as less than. Not just by the people that were looking at me, but by myself, Although I never asked to be on that pedestal, and I don't even know how I got there. It's just, I talk about this as well, it's one of the the curses that comes with success. Sometimes it puts you in a cage that you don't even realize until it's too late.
That's true.
When I started to really open up on the podcast and kind of share my personal story and explore and get introspective about who I am and why I am the way that I am, I felt like, okay, wow, this doesn't feel like weakness. This actually feels really empowering. It feels really liberating.
One of the things when I'm hearing the story, so this is not going to relate a lot, but the end of it will. I'm the youngest of my siblings, right? So my brother is 12 years older than me. My sister is 14 years older, and my other sister is 15 years older. when I was born into such a family with big age gaps, one of the things that was both a blessing and a curse was the fact of the age difference. And one of the blessings is like, as you know, that I'm متدلع بالعائلة and so on, and it's nice. One of the curses, however, is that I fell into the trap of the need to prove myself to my siblings that I will never go through the same mistakes as they did. If they didn't get a good education, I'm gonna really work hard on my education. If they messed up in anything in their lives, I will make sure to get the perfect relationship, the perfect, I don't know, steps in life. And I'm just curious as to know, do you think that the fact you're moving a lot from place to place and the fact that you're always an outlier, as you said, you're never Arab enough for the Arabs or Palestinian for the Palestinians, you had to kind of like step in and kind of really prove yourself to others that, hey, listen, I can do a good job. I can nail this wherever you put me. Do you feel that's part of it, the fact that you're an outlier in certain situations?
100%. I mean, it's... I would even go as far as to say that it was kind of that, let's call it overachieving, that I associate, and the recognition I got because of overachieving, I would associate it to in my head, that's the only way you can get love. That's the only way for someone to love you or like you. And when I talk about love, I'm not talking about romantic. I'm talking about love in all its forms. The only way you are worthy of it is you have to earn it by being successful and by overachieving and by overcompensating and by being the top. And that's, it's a lot of pressure, but it's something that started at a very young age because, again, the way that I would adapt is because, I had this ability to, almost like a chameleon, become part of whatever community I was part of. And now I see it as a superpower because it helps you with, it helped me a lot with my relationships. But when I'm at the formative stage of my life, when, I'm still trying to figure out who I am, and that's, obviously a lifelong pursuit, that kind of approach to life can get you used to pursuing things in a way that isn't always healthy. Like, I don't think it was a healthy way it wasn't a healthy way to do it. It helped me, but I think that's where it stems from. I don't know if I made sense.
No, 100%. And I think, especially when you said like you're a chameleon in society, I literally used the exact same words, by the way. And it's such a blessing and a curse. A blessing in business, because you literally adapt to any situation. It's a curse because, have you ever heard this question that is, who are you when no one's looking?
Yeah.
And I think that's actually my toughest, if you were to ask me what's the toughest question you can be asked, it's that question. Because I would actually take some time to answer. Because I am such a chameleon that I'm so used to adapting to the person in front of me, I will automatically just be a clone of who you are. But then I ask myself the question a lot. It's like, who am I when actually I'm in between four walls in my room, just sitting and being? And that's the question I think that we have to answer sometimes.
You know what's interesting about that? I agree with you, but I find that to be such a freeing place to be if you don't know yet, because the playground is still open for you to explore. And the challenge becomes about exploring. In my case, especially at this stage in my life, I know what the answer to that is, but the biggest reason that I don't see myself, let's say, doing it or living it is purely fear, purely. And it's crazy because it's so much more, it feels like a very defeatist thing to say, but to be so conscious and aware of what it is that brings your spirit joy and lights that inner fire, you know what that is, but you are so scared of saying it out loud or even trying to pursue it for fear of failure. That is so hard, and it is so... it is a tough place to be.
So you have a fear of failure for whatever you want to do.
100%. Especially when you're so used to being someone who has a specific track record. And again, I'm not trying to like overinflate my ego here.
You have the track record.
I have a track record, alhamdulillah, and I'm very grateful for it, and I worked hard for it. But to be able to pivot to the degree that I would like to at this stage of my life is so scary. And I'm literally going through it right now, Hussein. Literally. Like it's been a week of just, I'm sitting there and I'm just like, no, let's go back to what you do best because that's what makes you money. That's what people love you for. That's what people trust you for. Don't try this. What if, you're going to fail at this? But then I do something like, the podcast, which is so out of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
I do not enjoy being in front of the camera. I'm not someone who ever aspired to become a content creator. I get nervous every single time I shoot an episode. And somehow there are people who, are taking time out of their day to listen to my episodes.
Absolutely.
And it's working. So I don't know. It's a journey.
Can I tell you my opinion?
Yeah.
If I was you,
Tell me.
I wouldn't be scared of failure. I would be scared of success.
Really?
Because you have such a strong personality that I think usually people say like the percentage of failure is so high. I think for you it's the opposite. So the percentage of success is so high that you should be afraid of what happens after I succeed. So flip the paradigm in your life, because mashallah alayki, you have proven track record. And you have a lot of experience. I think someone like you stepping into anything, I think you know exactly what you want to do and what to do to get there. It's just flip it. That's what I would do. Because I used to be scared of failure. And then I called my friend one day because I got the opportunity to speak on stage in front of like a lot of directors and managers. And I have never done that. I told them I did. I've never done that. I had to fake it until I make it.
I love it.
Honestly.
I love it.
I called him up. I was like, his name Maher. I was like, Maher, honestly, please don't take this in an egotistical way or I'm narcissistic or arrogant. I was like, I really am so confident of what I can do now, but I'm actually worried of what could happen if I really do a good job. Like, will they call me again? Will I be able to handle it? And I didn't think for a second if I would go up and not give a good talk. For a second. I just was afraid of what happens if I really do good. Does that make sense?
I mean, that's a beautiful way to think of things.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just...
I'm definitely going to call you next time I'm scared.
Yes. What is it? You said that, you know what it is that kind of like brings fire, makes your heart skip a beat, as they say. I'm curious. What is it?
What is the thing that I'm passionate about?
Honestly,
Writing. I'm a writer. Storytelling for me is what I am so passionate about. It brings me a level of joy. Like, honestly, if you get me talking about this, I won't stop. But like, there's something about the ability to take a pain or a joy or a moment and turn that into a narrative that captivates someone and gives them a medium of connection. I find it so beautiful that, oh my God, just the idea of it gets me excited. I love it. And I do write. But I write within the privacy of my own journals and books and laptops. I'm writing a few things and I always get asked, oh, so you want to publish a book or you want to develop a show or you want to make a movie? And I'm just like, I don't know what's going to come of it. Yeah. But this is something that brings me so much joy. But like, what happens when I put it out there? It's no longer what I've built it up to be in my head, which is like this divine form of expression.
It's no longer a journal. Now it's being read by everyone out there.
Yeah. And judge, and will they connect? Like, does it even make sense? Is it cheesy? Does it mean something? Can it mean something?
I mean, the perspective that I think of sometimes is that I would rather be criticized for something than not be criticized at all. So that's the perspective I follow. Because honestly, like looking back at anything we do, I mean, look back at the first pitch you did, right? Yeah. Or even the first episode you did, and just think about how fast you were talking, or maybe how slow you were talking. The first video I published, I was taking a selfie, right? And I had a filter on, I had a glitch effect from TikTok, and I watch it, but I kept it on my TikTok for the reason of actually laughing at myself. But I don't laugh at myself out of mockery. Like I actually laugh at myself and Hussein,
when can it
وانسدت. I just feel proud of it, honestly. And I think you should, because have you ever heard the quote, like you can't be what you cannot see?
No, that's beautiful.
So and I think once you get out into the world and you publish your first book, who cares if it's the worst book or the best book? What matters is that out of the billions of people that actually want to do what you want to do, you're the one that did it. And that's the only difference, I think. And then just the experience teaches us.
Yeah.
If someone sends you a message, be like, hey, listen, I don't like the cover of the article. So you suddenly improve the article, improve the cover. So it's kind of like the lean startup approach, just improving in your own work.
Yeah. I mean, look, it takes this whole idea of being a creative is all about kind of taking that vulnerability
Yeah.
and finding a way to just put it out there, whether it's an ad, a commercial, a book, a piece of writing, a podcast, whatever it may be. But a big part of that creative process is the struggle that is happening right now that I'm trying to articulate. And I think, it sounds cliche, but like it comes with the territory. Your yearning to want to put something out there needs to be laced with that fear of how it will be received.
Yeah.
Because to create and express is again part of that yearning for deeper connection.
Yeah.
With the world, the universe, people.
Yeah.
There's a lot of emotion and vulnerability in it, and it's a process. But the logical side of me, the one that has to overplan everything, right now is fighting it.
Oh my God!
But that's the problem.
I think 4 years ago, when I first went to Kuwait, I decided to launch a public speaking workshop. Okay. And by that time, I've done only 2 public talks. But again, I wanted to convince people that I am an expert. I was not. So I went to my friend and I told him. And then I went to our graphic designer. I was like, can you please design a post where I tell people that I have a workshop coming up? And I printed the post, okay? And I stuck it beside my computer screen. And it was stuck there, and I kept talking to my friends about it. But the reason it was stuck there is because I wanted to make myself remember every single day of the things I can do, but I'm not doing. You know what I mean? And so the day came where I looked at it, I was like, you know what? Enough looking. Who cares? I took the post, I went to Instagram. I swear to God, my finger was shaking, like shaking. I tear up when I say it because I'm shaking. And then I posted it, and suddenly I saw a lot of love.
Wow.
I saw a lot of support. Only 4 people came to the workshop. But you know what happened? 15 workshops after. I had like 30, 40 people from all over the world. And so I think once you do it, you're going to realize that what you expect is going to happen is actually not reality. The opposite will probably happen. Just like you're getting the support in your own podcast.
Yeah.
Did you expect to get it after the first, you posted
Absolutely.
a video about it?
Yeah. No. I did not expect it. I was shocked. Because I wasn't even I remember I posted that my first episode and I got on a plane. And when I landed, I was like, oh, wow. People actually care. Wow.
They do.
It was beautiful. And you're right. I mean, that's a great story. It's true.
So write it and stick it in front of you. And
on my fridge. I'll do that. On my fridge, on my mirror, on my laptop.
So when you're brushing your teeth, you're reading your articles, reading your books. One of the things you said in your podcast is something beautiful. You said we spend our lives in pursuit rather than in presence.
Yeah.
The reason I wrote it is because I'm projecting here, because it's my problem. I find it very difficult being present. And I'm curious as to what have you done about this?
Yeah, that's a really, that was an episode that got a lot of feedback from people.
Yeah.
Because it seems like it's something that a lot of people struggle with. I definitely still struggle from it, but the difference is I catch myself doing it. Because I know what it's like to be so focused on the pursuit where I'm literally missing out on months of my life.
Yeah.
I know what that feeling is, and I know what that kind of lifestyle brought to my life. So now when I notice and I recognize those thoughts and when I'm sitting with someone, the fact that I'm not really paying attention or I'm looking at my phone too much or whatever it may be, when I catch myself, I try and bring myself back to the present moment. And I've done a better job at it, but it's a daily struggle. It's not something that just changes. Mm-hmm. And honestly, anyone who tells me that they've mastered it, I genuinely don't believe them. I'm like, that's not true. It can't be true.
Of course.
Because we are literally, the world that we live in is constructed
absolutely
around distractions. Everything is meant and built. Everything that we see, pass, interact with is there to distract us from the present moment. So it's a constant struggle. But I recognize it more, and I think that's the هيدا الإنجاز.
It's like, especially with the emergence of social media right now, I think one of the problems that we compare ourselves to others. Funny thing, not funny, very deep thing actually. I watched this video on TikTok من فترة. One of the best videos I have. It's in my favorites on my phone. I watch it every once in a while. And this is what it said. He said, the guy was saying that he finds it very hard to practice gratitude, right? And how does he do it? How does he do it? He told himself that a lot of the first times you do in your lives might actually be the last times without you realizing. And he said something, he's like, the first time you go backpacking in Europe and solo might be the last time you do it. And he said something beautiful. He's like, the first time you sleep over at your friend's house might actually be the last sleepover. He's like, so if you were to think about it in this perspective, perhaps you'd make every moment just a little bit sweeter.
Yeah.
And honestly, ever since I've watched this video, I was like, I'll be sitting with my friends or, I'd be in any experience and then my mind is wandering, thinking about what could or what should happen. And I'm like, why does that matter right now?
Yeah.
Why am I not enjoying a conversation with my friends,
Yeah.
And, but the world is truly, truly, truly surrounded by distraction.
It is. And you know what's interesting about what you said? I found myself doing this the most when I used to go on vacation.
Yeah.
I remember, for example, I'd be on vacation and I'd think, oh my God, next time I come here, I need to do A, B, C, D. But Dana, but you're here now. Why are you thinking about next time? Yeah. So, it's weird. Again, it's what brings us back to this idea of constantly being in pursuit.
Yeah.
If you're not in pursuit of something, what are you doing? We're so afraid to kind of sit with that question.
Absolutely. You said earlier that you love solo traveling. While you're talking, it's at the back of my mind. I'm like, she loves solo traveling because I love it too. And my perspective of it is that I love solo traveling because it's my way of pursuit of figuring out who I am. And what I find most freeing and liberating about it is that when I'm on the road, by myself, I take my own decisions. I'm away from my phone. I'm present. If I want to go right, I go right. If I want to eat Chinese, I'll eat Chinese. If I want to eat pasta, I'll eat pasta. I don't need anyone's opinion or asking anyone. And I just feel free. Yeah. And I think it's really did me a big favor towards being self-aware. I'm curious as to your perspective before I proceed.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely would agree with that. For me, I'm usually the alpha wherever I am. I'm the one that makes the final calls or the decisions or the plans. Yeah. I'm the one with the Excel spreadsheet. I'm the one with the recommendations. So when I travel solo, I plan nothing. Zero. Like to the degree of, I remember I had a trip once to Italy and all I did was plan 2 days at a hotel. And then I decided when I'm there for the 3 weeks, I'm going to plan as I go. I want to stay in another hotel tomorrow. I do that. And it's the only time I'm free from having to, report is the wrong word, but I'm free from having to be accountable to anyone else but myself. And I think that's the kind of freedom I crave when I'm a solo traveler. There's no one asking me, okay, where should we go next? What should we eat next? Yeah. Are you hungry? Do you want to do this? No. If I want to go sleep for the entire day, I can do it and there's no one to judge me.
No one can tell you not to do it.
Yeah, no. And I don't have to check in with anyone and it's so freeing from that perspective. But that's why I love solo travel because I don't have to explain anything. I just follow my gut.
Yeah.
And sometimes you don't do that enough in your day-to-day life.
You don't. You really don't. Solo traveling allows you, I think for me, it's not an episode about solo traveling, but it's a big part of, honestly, a lot of people find it weird that I solo travel, but I'm like, go discover yourself.
100%.
And how often is it that you do things because you want to do them? I mean, you're lucky because you're the alpha. You make the final call, but it's the other people that are not making the final call, So why don't you give yourself, do yourself a favor and go travel once in your life, and take a decision to travel without any planning and just let the path take you, right? Because you might meet a lot of interesting people, because I think we just meet the same people every single day, and we're in the same circle. We don't do anything new. But then when you break it, you're like, wow, the world is big.
It's interesting because I always get, my friends always tease me about this because I don't only just travel alone. I'm very comfortable to do things alone. Like I can have dinners and lunches and go to restaurants alone. Nice. I can go to the movies alone. I'm very comfortable being on my own. It doesn't bother me. And they look at me like, Dana, that's so embarrassing. And I'm like, really, it's not.
Yeah.
But I think there's a stigma around this idea of if I don't have people around me, if I don't have distractions around me, I have to sit with myself. And I think we're all, and I include myself in this, even if I am someone that can spend time alone, we all find it uncomfortable to a degree to sit with ourselves.
Yeah.
But it's a beautiful practice.
It really is.
Yeah.
In my perspective, I know you're someone very humble. I know you're going to say something when I say this. In my opinion, you're someone very successful, all right?
Thank you.
But you are a very humble person. And I the only other person that asked him this question is Muhammad Jafar, the Talabat guy.
Wow.
And I asked him the question is it lonely at the top? So I want to ask you the question.
Yeah.
Is it lonely at the top?
100,000,000%. 100%. It's so lonely. It's so effing lonely. And I say that, I always tell people it's very easy to glamorize being the alpha and being someone who has their own business and is doing things on their terms, living life on your terms. It's great, and it comes with a lot of pluses. I don't want to deny that. It comes with a lot of freedoms, freedoms that give you choices, which I'm not denying. But oh my God, it's so lonely. And it's lonely not because you're not surrounded by people. It's lonely because the pursuit is really, really difficult.
Yeah.
And when you realize that a lot of what you feel like you've been giving, whether that comes to your business or whatever, whoever or whatever you're surrounded with, and you don't feel safe enough to rely on anyone else the same way, it's a hard thing to come to terms with.
Absolutely.
So yes, I do think it's lonely.
It really is. I think most people would agree. One thing I changed my perspective towards, and kind of related, I used to be someone that just wanted to, even though I was trying to be more successful, but at the same time, I wanted to be friends with everyone. Until I read the quote, it's like a friend to all is a friend to none. And I was like, maybe that's part of it. And suddenly I started like cutting down a lot of my circle because I started, selecting my group of friends because I was trying to change the paradigm that it doesn't have to be lonely at the top.
Yeah.
But when they say it's like, also another quote, it's like, it's like basically, it's like if you hang around the barbershop long enough, sooner or later, you're going to get a haircut. And so that's the perspective that I try to surround my life with. It's like, yes, it is lonely at the top, but what if I surround myself with the same people that think in the same way? Therefore, it's a lot of lonely people that just become friends.
Yes, to an extent.
Yeah, to an extent.
To an extent, yeah. I think.
One of the things I loved when you said them on one of your podcasts, you said the worst prison is the one where you don't see any bars. Elaborate, what's your perspective on that one?
So the context of when I said that, I was talking about success, okay? Yeah. And I think that going back to social media and our surroundings, everyone seems to think that they have the definition of what success is, that we all have to, abide by. And I think that's completely untrue. I think the terms of success should be set by each individual, and we stop there. But when it comes to success, especially in the context of a career, it becomes almost, when I say it's the prison that you don't see the bars, it becomes the thing that you work harder to maintain versus to figure out ways on, okay, how do I grow from this or up my game or change or develop beyond this? Because again, and it goes back to kind of wanting to stay on that pedestal. There's a fear of, okay, great, I got recognized for something and I'm successful for something and amazing. But what happens when it's not there? What happens when people realize that I'm actually human and I'm not perfect? And that thought in itself is a prison. And even if it's self-imposed, we can't deny the fact that it is a prison. It's a prison of your own thought.
Of course.
And there's a book that I read the other day, The Roommates That Live in Your Head. Those thoughts really can be detrimental to your entire sense of self.
Of course.
And that's what I meant.
You are your worst enemy. That's definitely. Would the answer, this is kind of like a lot about the world of feminism and so on, but like, would the answer differ or change because you're a woman in business? Because a lot of women see, and there's a lot of pressure on women nowadays. I know it's a shift of topic, but I'm curious because I was talking to my mom about this, and my mom's definition of success to her is the fact that she's caring for her kids, and she is really, I'm going to say, fulfilled being a housewife, that she's literally providing for her sons and daughters. But there's a lot of pressure sometimes, society on, especially women, that now you have to be successful, you have to prove yourself and so on. But I kind of feel it's really a subjective experience, isn't it? Absolutely.
I think in general, look, when it comes to this idea of falling into the trap of worrying what the world thinks about you, I don't think it's limited to being a woman or a man. I think it's something that anyone can experience.
Okay.
But when it comes to women and kind of their pursuit of progress in whatever their avenue is, whether it's make a family or a career or whatever it may be. I think that we live in a world, especially now, where everyone loves to tell women what to do. Everyone loves to kind of push for a specific agenda of what success looks like for a woman, which I find incredibly exhausting.
Of course.
So I don't really subscribe to that kind of thinking. I when it comes to this specifically, I listen to myself and I try to define it for myself. And ignore what's being said around me, especially when it comes to a movement like the feminist movement, which we've heard this a lot. It's become very commercialized. There are a lot of points of view around it. There's no right way to be a feminist. There's no one way to be a successful woman. A successful career does not equate a successful life. A successful marriage and family doesn't always equate a happy life. You set the terms for your happiness and what that means to you and what that looks like.
100%. I think social media just idealizes a certain way of living where everyone suddenly wants to become the next Steve Jobs or Bill Gates. As if I think people nowadays are just mistaking how much money you have with success. And I think it's really the opposite correlation almost.
It is. And I think it's funny because I talked about this on another interview. When it comes to the Steve Jobs of the world and those successful leaders that we've glorified as almost, these incredible business gods, which a lot of them deserve it. I'm not negating that. But what I really wish, especially now in an age where we're a lot more conscious around this idea of the illusion of perfection and success, is that they have a team behind them who help them become who they are. Just because they represent a specific ideology or brand or business doesn't make them the sole thing that we should look up to. And I feel like we would do such a better job of telling authentic stories of successful businesses if we were to look at these people and their surroundings as part of the story versus just the individual. Because if you remember correctly the story of, again, Steve Jobs is one of my favorite people ever. And I love Apple. I'm such an ambassador for Apple. But he wasn't even a tech guy. He was the marketing guy. He wasn't the person doing the building. He wasn't the person doing the designing. But he was an incredible leader. He had an incredible vision and he was a great marketeer, which is brilliant. But that doesn't make him the sole reason for the success of that company.
Absolutely. I think we look at it at face value. We just see what he's doing. But we never look at how, first of all, exactly the team. Plus, I don't think we look at how you climb a mountain and there's always, as you said in one of your articles or podcasts, like there's always like a drop after every climb. We don't see that part of the story. And I fall into a lot of drops after every climb, but sometimes people don't see it. I wish they can see it. So the question for you is, and this is related to mental health, honestly, like how is your mental health at this point where after going through a lot of hardships?
It's definitely a work in progress. I'm at a better stage than I was last year. I'm a month away from being away from Kuwait for a full year, which I can't believe. I can't believe where I was a year ago and where I am now. That isn't to say that I think that I'm cured or healed or anything. I still have my struggles. Again, I said this before, I've had a super tough week, mentally, emotionally, where I've been questioning all the decisions I made this year. But I'm at a better place this now because the way that I deal with those thoughts and emotions is not how I used to deal with them a year ago. I used to focus more on being positive and suppressing and, delving into something that would distract me, like work or whatever, my relationships, my friendships, things like that. But no, now I try to sit with my emotions. I seek help if I need it.
Nice.
I talk to people.
Nice.
And I'm very open about kind of my journey with that. I think it's a never-ending journey.
People need to watch, and honestly, I urge everyone to watch your podcast because you are very, very open and you say things in a way that people can actually take and they can. It's nice. It's like a lesson from your life lessons. It's nice. I liked it. So I respect your vulnerability on the podcast. It's very rare to find it honestly with people. Relating to that, so after talking about everything we talked about, what would you say is success to you as Dana? And what is the thing that has to happen for Dana to say, I'm now successful?
That's such a good question. I think success for me is to not want to be anywhere but where I am in the present moment. And it's not just about being present. It's about truly being content with the pace and the circumstances that my life are in a particular moment, where I'm not focusing on what I need to be doing or what I don't have. It's being at peace with where I am, to the point where I can be, I can say this is enough and I am enough. Actually, probably more so that I am enough, where I don't constantly feel like I'm falling short because I'm not in achievement mode. I think for me, that would be success.
I find that impressive that you said that, because a lot of people would answer that with a title. And that's why I started the podcast with asking you, who are you without the titles? Because you realized we didn't talk about anything about what you do so far. People actually probably don't know what you do, because you said, I have my proven, results, but people still don't know what you do. And I love that. I like the fact that they have to dig deeper into your life to know what you've done. But usually people would answer that with titles and roles. And I think it comes with maturity and age, probably, and a lot of experience.
Yeah. I think it's something you only learn over time.
Yeah.
I think, like I said, I love being in my 30s because I'm more okay with my imperfections.
Yeah.
I'm more okay with the struggle that is life. I'm more accepting of the obstacles that are coming my way. And because of how much this phase of my life has surprised me, I look forward to everything that is to come. I look forward to getting older, to being different, to growing, to accepting that there really is no constant in life. And to embrace that is to really enjoy it.
There shouldn't be any constant.
Yeah.
I think there shouldn't be, because my dad, when I spoke to him on the podcast, that's something we touched on. And that's how he led his life, where when he started, he used very silly examples, but you'll see them in the podcast. He said something, say in Arabic, قال انه لما بكون ماشي بالشارع وكون بدي مثلا اكل ساندويتش فلافل، عرفت كيف؟ عم بقول انه ما لازم I don't need to spend my life only عم باكل هالساندويتش فلافل، لازم I need اطمح لاكل شيء اكبر من هيك، ولا اكل شاورما، لانه اطلب مطعم روح fine dining and so on. So I have to keep changing, have to keep evolving لحتى what used to be my comfort zone, which was خلص انا مقتنع انا بقدر اكل هالاكله وبقدر اكلها طول حياتي، or بقول لحالي no, I'm not, this is I need to keep changing to be able to reach out for something that's better, reach out for something that's bigger, and who knows what comes along the way.
Yeah, and I think that's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
To embrace the fact that we don't know. I want, short story.
Yeah.
I once got rejected for a job in London at this huge multinational company, because when I was asked where I wanted to be in the next 5 to 10 years, I said my ambition was no longer to work for an agency. It was to have something on my own or something like that. That was my answer for the 5 years. And then I told her for the 10 years, I don't know yet.
Yeah.
And I remember I got rejected for that job, and I asked her why. And she said, well, one, you should have said that, your ambition would have been to grow within this company that you are applying for.
Nice.
And I told her I would very clearly have been lying if I said that. And you're like, you would believe me if I said that? Like, I would see it as I'm just sucking up to you.
Of course.
And she was like, no, I mean, you should know where you want to be in this amount of time. And it was such a good lesson for me to come to terms with, no, you know what?
You shouldn't.
I don't want to. I'm very okay with not knowing. And I think that's something else that comes with age. I'm very okay with not knowing where I'm going to be next year and the year after that. I mean, it's definitely good to have a plan and a direction and a goal.
Of course.
But that doesn't have to be mapped out to the degree that maybe old Dana would have.
In my podcast with the episode with Russia, she said something that just came into my mind. I asked her, I was like, how would you define life? That's what I asked her. And she said, a game. And then I was like, elaborate. And then she said that she started seeing life as a game because it changed her perspective, because now she started seeing it as just being very playful.
Yeah.
And so let's just play. And I really loved that perspective, because a lot of people try to pressure you, to convince you that if you don't have a 5-year plan, something's wrong. And then I was talking to my nieces and nephews about this, like 15, 16. They're like, we're approaching university. We don't know what to do. We're stressed out. I was like, you need to feel how liberating it is not knowing, because that means you can experiment. Who knows what you can do? Who knows? But you will never know up until you kind of like get into the world.
Yeah, and it's honestly, it's such an important part of, I think, everyone's learning curve.
Yeah.
Because, and I find this when I talk to people that are much younger than me, that are still graduating, I look at them and I'm like, I really have to hold my tongue, because I'm like, Dana, don't do it, because you did not listen to anyone when you were that age. In fact, you thought you had it all figured out. And now I look back, I didn't know anything. I learned along the way, but I had to go through that phase. I had to figure it out by myself. I had to go through the stress of feeling like I needed to have all the answers, only to discover that, oh my God, even now I don't have all the answers, and it's actually better that I don't.
And I don't think we're gonna ever get to we shouldn't get to the point where we just know it all. You can't.
Yeah, I know.
But for you, in this is probably one of the bars you don't see, right? Where you think, the people that بيفكروا إنه بيعرفوا كل شيء, but because they think like that, they're actually limiting themselves from learning.
It's an illusion. It's an illusion to feel that. Like if you asked me now, when it comes to how I define life, if you were to ask me that question, for me, honestly, the biggest realization, and it's not even a realization, we know it, but really there's a profound idea behind it. It's that life is temporary.
Yeah.
It's temporary.
Yeah.
And once you come to terms with that, the falls, the mistakes, the mishaps don't feel as large. Very recently I went through an experience where it kind of awakened my relationship to my faith. I'm not a super religious person, but I'm quite spiritual, and I'm kind of reconnecting with my faith in different ways now. But I truly believe that this can't be as good as it gets.
Yeah.
This is just a temporary pit stop that is, completely covered with lessons and opportunities and people that I need to meet. But it's not the end of the road. That's not the end of the road. There is so much that is to come later. I just need to have faith in that. And it's funny, the more I remind myself of that, the more I'm, okay, khalas, I'll get over it. I'll figure out a way to get through this.
Love it.
Yeah.
If we were to kind of like go back in your past, right, is there anything you'd actually want to change?
That's such a good question. No, but I want to follow up, okay? There's nothing that I would want to change. But it's not because I love everything that happened. There are a lot of really not nice things that happened in my journey, whether it came from interactions with people, experiences with family, things that happened in business, things that were not okay, even traumas that I don't want to glorify just because I learned a lesson from it. Yeah. And I think it's really important that I say that, because I don't look at the things that I would potentially regret and think, oh my God, I'm so glad that happened. I don't. But I wouldn't change it, because I do believe that those experiences did make me stronger. Yeah. And I do believe that those lessons could have come in different ways. But I to say that I would change it would rob me of who I've become today. So I wouldn't change it, but I also don't glorify the things that are not good that have happened to me in the past.
Recently, I was watching this thing that said, someone was saying that literally one of the first lessons apparently they teach you in the CIA apparently is that they try to tell you that there's a correlation between success and a little bit of trauma, where they were thinking of literally putting or enforcing fake or kind of like experimental traumas on kids to a certain extent, because apparently it correlates with success.
Oh my God.
Imagine.
Oh my God, that's really like...
unethical.
Yeah, unethical. That sounds messed up.
And fake.
It sounds like, what's the word? It's a sociopathic thing to do. Yes. Like, it's not normal. That's scary.
It is scary. I was like, why?
But the CIA is scary too. Yeah.
The last two questions I'm going to ask you for today, and they're the most cliche questions we can ask on a podcast, but I really want to know your advice. What's the best advice you've ever gotten?
The best advice I've ever gotten? Okay, first of all, I don't believe in giving advice. Let me just say that. I really, really, truly don't. And I don't listen to advice when people give it to me. Okay. But one thing that someone did say to me, which I thought was super, super true, is that once you join the rat race, it is so difficult to get out. It is so difficult. And I don't think people realize this enough.
Yeah.
Like your need to be a part of anything, whether that is a marriage or a business or a job or whatever, once you are in, leaving is super, super, super hard because you start to get confined into how that's going to look to the rest of the world. Okay. Yeah, that's the best advice.
That's the advice you got on the plane.
Yeah, that's the advice I got on the plane. Yeah.
I've done my research.
You have done your research. Impressive.
What's the worst advice you ever got?
The worst advice I ever gotten. Oh my God. Look at the positive. Look at the positive. Look at the silver lining. I find that to be such a toxic thing to say to people, and I think it's so unfair. And it's laced with inauthentic, patronizing language that robs you from truly being present and finding ways to confront the situations that you are in. And it drives me absolutely crazy. I think it's so toxic.
Yeah.
I think everyone needs to chill when it comes to positivity. There's nothing wrong with looking for the silver lining in life, but to use that as a way to rob people of dealing with real traumas, experiences, feelings, whatever it may be, I think is really unfair and toxic. So I hate it.
Thank you so much for the beautiful, beautiful, beautiful episode today.
Thank you.
Honestly, I love your character. I love how inspirational you are. I love how driven you are. And I admire the fact that we didn't actually talk about entrepreneurship or business. We just spoke about the human side of Dana, which is something I'll definitely take a lot. That's all I can say.
Me
Anjad, wallah.
Thank you. I love this conversation, and I'm happy we didn't talk about business. Like I'm very over telling that story, but thank you. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
بالعكس again يعني you're such a character, and والله العظيم I'll say it again. If I was you, I wouldn't even worry a single bit about the chance of failure. I would literally worry about how much chance I have of success. And I think you're going to do a great job in whatever you do. You've done it before. It's nothing new. Jump, all I can say.
Inshallah.
Right. And you've done skydiving, haven't you?
I have.
So it's nothing new.
Oh wow, you have done your research.
I've scrolled a lot.
I've done it twice.
Twice? I've done it once. Yeah, I don't know what to think about it. Anyway, I'm going to have to come to the end of the episode now. Thank you for everyone that watched. And thank you again, Dana. I hope to see more guests like you with even more inspiring, as I say, with an E, stories. Again, thank you for watching. Well, thanks.